Good good afternoon and happy Tuesday. As I said, we're gonna talk about the importance of marriage, and we will have to start in Matthew 19, verse 14, and it says, "Haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." And today, in these times, we're having a gender war for what? I don't know. We talk about woman can do anything a man can do, and it's a lot of fighting and a lot of just getting the man out the house, and a lot of following God has to do with a man. For the covenant was made to a man, and there's nothing wrong with that. For a man is called to be the head of the household, and so in the Bible it says a man should love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it. So for a man, we are called to, put away all our desires, you know, it, so that we can love our wife. And a wife, it says, to submit to her husband, respect her husband. So for a man, we shouldn't be the man, but we want respect. For a woman, they want love. so, so a lot of these fights shouldn't have to be, you know. Man is called more to be a provider. We should not be looking at our wife as, oh, Miss Independent. She should come up with half of our belonging, whatever. And and a woman are naturally. You don't even have to explain it to them. Naturally they're more nurturing than a man would be to children. A lot of what marriage is so that a family can start, so that it can be shown to children. I didn't have good marriage example, so a lot of things can change. Just because you had a bad father doesn't mean you have to be a bad father. Just because you had a bad relationship with your mother doesn't mean you have to be a bad mother. A lot of these stuff is explained in the Bible. There's no other book that has all the answers that you need. And we fight with it because it's not what we like. We would rather have our wife help us with building stuff, and this is why in these times we're like this. We don't know what a man needs to do. We don't know what a woman needs to do. But how about what we need? We put it in God's hands. Instead of putting it in your wife's hands to help with what you need. How about we put it in God's hand? And for a wife, how about if your husband, if he's looking at you like you should be doing a man's role, how about you put it in God's hand? And before this death experience I was getting visions, right? And one of my visions, and I started looking for a Joshua, and I saw the number 24. So I'm thinking I'm looking for a 24-year-old Joshua. I start meeting young men and I start asking them are they 24, and so just a few days before that, I don't know why, but God put it in my heart to tell my children, my wife, you know, there comes a time when you have to decide for yourself if this is the God of Abraham, just the God of Abraham, just the God of Isaac, you know, just the God of the covenant, just the God of my husband, just the God of my father, just the God of my mother, or will he be my God too? And this is before I didn't know I was going to collapse, but I was telling them this. And, you know, and I was looking for a 24-year-old Joshua. And then this happened. And I had no idea, you know, because I had it in my heart, like, I wanted to follow God. And I didn't want to have a fight with my family. So it was like, you know, I will serve my Lord. And y'all will find what is right in your hearts. And this happened, and I'm looking for a 24-year-old Joshua, and I could barely walk when I was home. I prayed on my porch. I saw a vision of me seeing the back of myself and my door, and I'm thinking someone up across the street is praying for me. I'm like, somebody in the house is praying for me. And then all this came along, and I found out who Joshua 24 was. Joshua 24 was right on my door. Joshua 24:15. Choose for this day who you will serve. And as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It doesn't have to be a fight. You know, could have been there from the beginning. You know, because loving the Lord helps me love my children and wife. I didn't have to make it this way. I didn't have to make it like you guys choose. I should have shown it. And that's how you leave an inheritance for your children's children. Because if I would have died there, my legacy would have died there. I didn't prepare them enough to leave my legacy for my children's children. So here's my songs. Lord, it is you that make a matrimony holy. You call us by name, just like you call a spouse for us. Let us keep our eyes on the role of a husband and the role of a wife, so that more families won't be torn apart, because our covenant with you starts with our children. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. I have become one flesh with my wife, so that I can leave an inheritance for my children's children. The Lord must build the house, or it is for nothing. And on this day I have chose the God of the covenant given to Abraham. For as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Amen. I love y'all, and you know, this is my heart, my perspective. You know, it is up to y'all what y'all want to do for y'all family. But what I come to realize is my God does not break any promise to me. So, you know, you're either going to do it your way or fight against the God of creation. So choose. Love y'all. Peace.